Marketing is hard, but I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host, you seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
If you've got kids, join me, Jana, on Story Nori, the Stories podcast. Meet Birdie, an ancient wise old bird, and best friends with a young boy called Jake. He's always around when Jake needs advice and help. And follow the adventures of Jimmy Mouse. Follow Story Nori and let your imagination soar, just like Birdie.
Today's episode is a really fun one. Now, do you remember when you were a kid and they gave you like this little bottle that had a wand in it and you could pull it out and blow all these bubbles? Or have you been to a kids party lately where they've got these bubble machines now? Now for me, it just brings back a lot of nostalgia. But get this, did you know they actually have bubbles now that glow in the dark under UV lights? Now I didn't. And today's guest, John Reider, he didn't know it either. Now, it goes back about 20 years when he first saw them, but he liked them so much, he became so intrigued that he actually ordered some. Fast forward, and the next thing you know, he's now called, get this one, the Bubble Man. Yep, he's called the Bubble Man. He's got bubble buses, he's got bubble machines, he's got specialized wands to make all these crazy bubbles, all this crazy stuff. Now, are you sitting there right now thinking, what does this have to do with animals? Well, guess what? John and his wife are really long-term animal lovers. And one day they're sitting around the table and they're talking about the bubbles. And they thought, you know what? I wonder if our dogs would like the bubbles the same way that kids like them. And you know what? He goes to the drawing board and he starts working on formulas that would be healthy for pets because the human ones are actually unhealthy because they're too soapy. And the next thing you know, pop, he gets a great idea. He creates a special formula that's safe for pets. But it even gets better than that. He created flavors. Now, can you guess what flavors they are? Well, the ones that he started with were bacon and peanut butter. Now, what dog doesn't love peanut butter and what dog doesn't love bacon? I can tell you right now, I like both of them too. And then he also created one for cats with catnip. Now, think about this. Who would have ever thought about this if he hadn't seen these bubbles that glue in the dark? So anyways, I don't want to burst your bubble. I had to say that one too. But there is so much more that's going to be in this episode. There's new different flavors, and there's some fun stories about other animals in a zoo. So have that inner kid, the puppy, and the kitten in you get ready and make sure to put a little devilish grin because this episode will definitely put a big smile on your face, and I'll bet one of the pets in your life are going to have a big smile on their face too.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and gains, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, Mark Kyle.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the For Real podcast. Today I've got a really fun one. You know, when I was doing this thing, I always wanted to have some really clever ones and really interesting technology and all that stuff. My guest today is John Reider, and he's actually also known as the Bubble Man. And we're going to get into that. John, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to have you here.
Oh, Kyle, thanks so much. Pleasure to be with you and your listeners today.
Well, really, it's going to be great, and this is going to be a fun one. But what I wanted to do is get into your background and kind of how you got to what we're going to talk to today. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I know you've got the bubble bus and all that stuff, but I want to hear the history, how you ended up doing that and all that, and just go from there.
Sure. Well, as most stories go, mine is kind of a fun, interesting one. It started many moons ago. I had found a gentleman who had invented these bubbles called techno bubbles, and they glowed under black light. And I thought they were the most fascinating thing. And I ordered some, and I found out that they were as advertised. These bubbles glowed under blacklight, and they were the coolest things I had ever seen. To make a long story short, over the years, I started reselling for this gentleman because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've always kind of had side hustles
Sure.
growing up, and we became the face of techno bubbles. So we started doing bubble events just to advertise these glowing blacklight bubbles that no one had ever seen before.
I've never seen them myself to date. I know I read about it in your thing, but I've never even seen them. That sounds really cool.
You know what? They were fascinating. And the coolest customer I had when we first started, every haunted house in America loved these things because it was something new and different. They looked like this kind of crazy radioactive, effect. And every haunted house wanted them. So the haunted house people became my best friends, and we sold a lot of the bubbles to them. Even though they looked menacing, they were very safe, non-toxic, as all of my products are. But that's really kind of how I got into this crazy bubble business. And then as we started doing more and more events just to advertise the bubbles, people started asking me if I would start doing bubble events, and I'd never even thought about doing bubbles like as an event business. And
Right.
we started doing birthday parties and church events and high school mixers, and then the next thing you know, we were doing every high school in St. Louis and every birthday party and every grand opening, and the bubble bus was invented and kind of came to be, and then we franchised that and now have multiple buses in multiple states today. So that's how I got started in this crazy bubble business.
So is the bubble bus thing, is that similar to like the party bus that like adults get and they're all drinking and going from place to place? Or is that more for little kids? What's it? I mean, what's the general use for it?
Right. So, bubble bus can be most people when, if they don't see the bus and see what we do, they think we are a party bus, Mark. So,
Right.
in the early days, we got so many calls, hey, I got a bachelor or bachelorette party. We want to go out and do the typical party bus thing. Bubble bus in our world we're a mobile bubble event company. So we use the bus like no one ever rides in the bus except my crew.
Okay.
So we use these crazy 1960s looking digitally wrapped buses. Peace, love, and bubbles is our mantra. And we arrive at the event in these cool looking bus vans, and then all of our bubble equipment is in there. So we set up outside and then blow hopefully more bubbles than anyone's ever seen before.
So do you drive it yourself? It's a class C, I think is what you have to do to drive a bus, or is it B or whatever it is to have a bus?
Yeah, you know what? In the early days, we had hand painted short buses. So I bought some old school buses that were decommissioned, and we hand painted them. So they were truly like 1960s Woodstock looking vehicles.
Cool.
And then as we started getting more popular and started franchising, we actually built it on like a Nissan high roof cargo van. So
Okay.
anyone, yeah, no special license needed, and you just hop in them. They drive like they drive like a car.
So, two things to interject, and for the younger crowd, they're not gonna know this. It makes me think of the Partridge Family because they had their bus. And then here's a side note is my son, who is ADHD. I am too, by the way, but obviously, but my son, when he was in school, he had some accommodations for being ADHD. He was extremely intelligent, but he just didn't do anything. He was, the kids that were always in trouble all the time, and when we were growing up, were ADHD. But decided he wanted to change schools when he was in high school, and there was a school really close to our house, but not in our district. And they had a block system, which is basically the same as college. You have classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you have a little bit longer class, but you're rotating all the time. And it was better for him. And so, and where I am in Austin, in a lot of areas, you can go to a different school. And I know this is a long story for a long diatribe for a short story, but long story short is he decided he wanted to go to the school, and you could transfer to other schools if you can pay tuition sometimes, but this school wouldn't let it do it. So I came up with the idea, because I had my own business, that I got a job as a school bus driver in the mornings. So I can drive your bus. If you had the real bubble bus, I could drive it for you. It's pretty funny. Long story for a stupid thing.
Oh, Mark, that is a very creative way to solve a problem. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going to do it for, he was going in his junior year in high school. I thought I'd do it for a semester, then he'd be in and that. So I tell him at the end of the semester, hey, I'm gonna go now. I said, well, if you go, he's got to go too. So then I'm going, God dang it. I only did mornings. And so I ended up going through the year, and the next year I'm thinking, okay, he'll be a senior, halfway through the year, I'll just tell him I'm not going to do anymore. And my daughter goes, I want to go to that school too. So I ended up driving that bus for like 5 years. And the head of the bus department comes to me several months into one of my fourth year doing this thing, and she goes, would it bother you if we're having a hard time finding people to drive just in the afternoons? Would it bother you if we could grandfather your daughter in? I looked at her and I said, no, I just have to stand up and give you the biggest kiss you've ever had. And I literally have it in my calendar, and I call it Bus Emancipation Day. It comes up every year, and I think about, man, I did that for so long. But anyways, we totally digress is what I normally do. Anyways, let's get back to bubbles. So you've got your bubble bus, and then let's go from there.
Yeah, so Bubble Bus is still up and running. So it's still a very successful business. I had no idea that the world needed bubbles at their parties like they do, and it turned into a good business for us. During pandemic, when pandemic hit, everything kind of shut down, and so did my event business because people couldn't gather.
Right.
So a local soap manufacturer who was in the hand sanitizer business kept us afloat because I had a bottling line that I could actually put things in a bottle. So during pandemic, we got into we started bottling hand sanitizer for a local company, and learned how to package things very quickly and efficiently. So after pandemic, we started thinking, it's like, wow, we really kind of went to school of hard knocks. We kind of figured out how to put things in bottles. So let's maybe look at doing some retail products, and what might we do to sell our products in these bottles. And so one of our first products we came up with was the Puppy Love and Kitty Love brand of line of pet bubbles. So that's kind of how that came. It was all kind of due to the world being in pandemic, and I had to shift gears.
And so to get to, because that's the main reason we're on, is to talk about the animal side of your business. But so were you a big animal guy? Is that where did the idea come from?
Oh my, yeah. So growing up as a kid, we had a dog named Romeo. He was a Shetland Collie, a really cool dog. Loved him. And then growing up, my wife and I have had poodles and standard poodles and poodle doodles through our time together, and we still have a standard and a labradoodle at home. So we love pets. We love dogs. And a friend of ours who is who's a dog lover, we were at dinner one night, and she said, John, I know you're in the bubble business, but if you could come up with a bubble for pets, I think you may be able to sell some. So
Right.
It was truly that dinner party with my friend Susan happening to mention that to me that I started going to work. I went online and I started investigating and buying and testing every pet bubble that I could find, and found out that they were pretty low quality. Most of them didn't work, and the majority of them were made overseas. So I thought that we could do a much better job at it, making them here in the USA, and we found that pets and pet owners themselves really love the interaction that these bubbles were giving to them and their pets, whether it was for training or for play or for exercise, or just hanging out with your dog or cat.
Well, it's funny is, since we first talked, I'm surrounded by animal people all the time, obviously with the podcast and my business, and
Right.
I've talked to so many people, nobody even realized it was there, and I think it's such a clever idea. What I did is I spent some time digging into the bubble industry, and I didn't realize, there's all kinds of history to it. There were, I'm sure you know all this stuff, but it really started in the 17th century. They had people with clay pipes making bubbles way back then.
You know what? Yes, the amazing thing I've found with bubbles, whether they're human bubbles or our pet bubbles, Mark, is that, and especially in Bubble Bus, when we would go to an event and you'd have kids in strollers or kids that were just toddlers, or you'd have a grandma and grandpa, or maybe a really great grandparent that's pushing 100 years old, whether someone was 1 year old or 100 years old, I found that bubbles bring everyone together. And I would look at these crowds and I'd say, wow, I got people of all walks of life, all ages, all ethnicities. Nobody really cares about any of that stuff other than they're together and it's this joyful moment. So, but you're right. They've been around since early. I mean, as soon as man found out about soap, somebody invented those bubbles and they've been playing with them ever since.
Well, what I thought was interesting, where it really became the business was in the 1920s in Chicago with actually a cleaning solution company. So it wasn't that, probably just because there were bubbles when they were making things, but that's how it started. And I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yes, there was in fact, some of our formulas are based upon some very early 100-year-old bubble companies that really had what's known as the holy grail of the bubble fluid. I know that sounds kind of funny, but guys who are in the bubble business, there are some holy grail formulas out there, and we've come as close to that holy grail formula as I think anyone has today, and it's a very safe, very high quality bubble. It's awesome.
When I grow up, I'm going to be the bubble man. It's pretty funny. So, anyways, but let's get into the animal thing. And one of the things that I want you to address this, because when I was reading about it, the bubbles that we use for humans are not good for animals because it's not safe. So can you go through that and then let's dig into everything about them?
Sure. So, the biggest thing I found when I was doing the research is, and the number one question still today for us, Mark, is, hey, are your bubbles safe? I want to make sure.
Right.
I want to make sure that my dog is going to be okay with these. It's not going to make them sick. It's not going to give them skin irritations. So our formulas for the pets go through rigorous testing. We make sure, as much as people, some other manufacturers may say, well, they don't contain soap. The long and short of it, every bubble has a certain percentage of soap in it. It has to, in order to, form that film.
Right.
But there's many different types of soaps out there. So you want to make sure that your soaps are the most friendly to skin and to and to eyes. And if you get in them into your mouth, kind of like when you're washing it, like when you're giving your pet a bath, and it may get some suds in its mouth. Okay. It may not taste great, but it's not going to hurt him if you're using the right, sort of shampoo. And we went about formulating our bubbles the exact same way, making sure that we use the safest chemicals possible. We've gone through ASTM testing too, which is a toy certification that certifies these bubbles to be safe for children under the age of 14. So if it's safe enough for like for an infant, that was about the best safety rating we could get for them for the pets.
Yeah, ASTM is American Scientific Testing Method or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's actually a certification through the Consumer Product Safety Commission, ASTM. Yeah, it's in fact, I don't even recall the acronym now, but it's ours are certified to the latest, I think 2023 version of that.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back. We are supported by PrepVet, providing stem cell therapy for pets.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
So anyways, so let's talk about the bubbles. So you create this thing. I'm really curious about it. I want to know if my dogs would actually chase a bubble. So talk about the flavors, and then let's hear some stories and what these dogs do, and I guess cats as well. Let's just get into it.
Yeah. So, bubbles are kind of like any other interactive toy that we found with dogs and cats. So, some dogs, some different breeds, and some dogs just by nature, you present a tennis ball to them or anything and you throw it and they'll innately chase it, and they'll do it until your arm drops off. Right.
Right.
What we found with the bubbles is the same thing. We'll have some dogs that immediately take to them. We'll have some dogs that when you blow a bubble up close to their nose, it may kind of freak them out. They may not know. It's like, what's this floating orb? They've never seen that before.
Right.
So we found with some dogs that it's kind of like teaching your dog to play fetch. You have to introduce them a few times. The mere fact that our bubbles are scented, Mark, we have bacon scented, peanut butter scented. We have, we just launched pumpkin, apple pie, and birthday cake scents. And it's an enticement. So it's not only this kind of thing that they may be able to chase and run after, but it does have a wonderful scent to it that entices them to go after that, that floating orb.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah. And I will say too that, our cats out there and our cat owners, Kitty Love is infused with 100% real catnip. And that's actually one of our best selling products. I mean, our cat owners love it for their pets. I mean, I just looked on Amazon. I think they sold like 3,000 bottles this month or something. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Again, so you just blow a bubble and they chase it around.
Yeah. So, so the typical bubble wand that you and I are used to, you dig your finger in the bottle and you pull out the little wand and you blow them. And, our bubbles, you may get anywhere from, 15 to 25 bubbles per blow. Those are great. We have a line of, and our bubbles will work with any toy or solution or bubble machine, but you can get different size wands. I have one gentleman, who bought one of our larger style wands that will produce a bubble about the size of a baseball. Okay, Mark?
Sure.
And his dog now has gotten very finicky, unless dad brings out the big bubble wand, Butch isn't going to fetch, Yeah, he's just not happy with the small ones anymore. So you can get really creative. You can make your own wands. It's really fascinating. People get very creative.
When I was doing some of the research, one of the things I read about, and for animals, there's a bunch of benefits for it. It develops their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills. It's crazy. And their listening skills too. One of the things I read was that when you're training a dog and you're giving them treats all the time, it's another way to do it versus giving them treats all the time. So they're not getting all the treats and they get something different, which I thought was kind of clever too.
Yeah, I have one gentleman. Again, there's multitudes of them, but just the other day, there's a certain time of the day where when he happens to use a bubble gun, like a little toy bubble gun,
sure,
and he says he has to put that gun out of sight because as soon as he gets that gun going, the dog's in the backyard, and he said, he's become a pretty good user. He goes, John, I'm going to have to be buying your bubbles in 55-gallon drums. These dogs just love it,
Right.
And, we found that it's a way for, folks to interact. We're actually working with AARP right now in trying to get a program together for older Americans and some disabled folks to be able to interact with their dogs where they may have used to have played fetch with their dogs.
I love that.
and like gone out in the backyard and run with them, and maybe as folks get older, or if they've had a medical issue and they just can't do that, being able to sit down and blow the bubbles, and have Mother Nature blow them, or like blow them through the yard. We're trying to get a program together where we can do some sponsorship with AARP and get a program there for folks who may have missed that interaction with their pets just because they physically aren't able to do it anymore.
Well, this is the thing that always goes me crazy. Now I start going down all kinds of rabbit holes and thinking all these crazy, awesome things. Think about somebody who's handicapped
Yeah.
and be able to play with somebody we're not capable to. But this is something that if they can blow, they can actually interact with the animal that way too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's really heartwarming, actually.
And they have bubble machines, now very simple, inexpensive bubble machines that have little remote controls on them. And so even if a person, let's just say they're bound to a wheelchair or have lost they're a para or quadriplegic or something,
Right.
You can get a button in their hand where they can still go out and actually be interactive with their pet and exercise with their pet, even though they may not be able to run around in the yard with them. So we're looking very closely at that, and we're hoping to get something together with AARP in the spring, and some of the bigger rescues around the country. We're working with some of those right now to get a program. We're calling it Bubbles for Besties, and it's going to be our outreach program that we can maybe get into some communities like that and help them get back to playing with their pets.
Bubbles for besties, like your best friend, kind of a thing.
Yep. Bubbles, the number 4, and then besties. Bubble for Besties is kind of what we've named this as, and we actually just a couple weeks ago we just brought it to the table, and we're out there now calling people and seeing if they have some interest with it. So and we're getting some good feedback.
Well, I can see, again, my mind starts going all over the place, but I can see that. I wonder if there's a lot of dogs that are trained for veterans with PTSD and that too. I wonder if could be incorporated for them as well, just to give them genuine pleasure.
Right. We find, I found that, equine therapy, horses are
Right.
very, very powerful, with PTSD and folks who have had some traumatic thing. It almost miraculous results. I believe the same interaction is the same with dogs. There's something about man and woman and their animal, right? I mean, there's this almost spiritual bond sometimes it's there that can provide healing, whereas nothing else can. So and there's plenty of veterans out there. I tell you what, there's plenty of veterans on our streets and out there who have served our country that we should look at that as well, because they're definitely deserving of it.
Have you done anything with these bubbles and horses by any out of curiosity?
Oh, you know what? So we haven't tried them with horses, but our local zoo. So I live in St. Louis, Missouri,
where I was born.
Right. Okay. And St. Louis has it's a top 10 zoo. So they're one of the top 10 zoos in the country. And I think it's still it may be still the only zoo in America that's free. They don't charge you to get in. Wonderful.
Oh, really? That's cool. I didn't know that.
But anyway, we do the Bubble Bus. The event company does a lot of events down there for their guests and their patrons. So, humans, like we're down there blowing bubbles for people.
Right.
But one of the animal keepers last season came to me and said they were looking for some more interaction for their elephants.
Right.
So I suggested a bubble machine and some of our peanut butter scented bubbles.
Right.
And they use them in the back, like kind of in their holding area or
Sure.
their back area for engagement and just to give them some excitement. They seem to react very nicely to them. So that was kind of a crazy use. I had no idea that maybe elephants, they like peanut butter, they found some enjoyment with that. So we're looking at some other things like with the big cats, possibly trying some of our catnip bubbles with some of the larger cats and the jaguars and tigers and stuff down there to see, because they're always looking for something, to stimulate the animals.
It's funny. I had an episode with there's a group down in the San Diego area called Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh my! But I wonder if that would be it. Well, another thing I was thinking about while you were telling that is it'd be interesting to see what the chimpanzees are doing, or orangutans and that too, because they could probably learn how to actually blow the bubbles. That would be an interesting thing. I could hook you up with some of the people that are doing rescues. I've had chimpanzees, orangutan, and that. Be interesting to see how they would respond to that. I bet they've done stuff with that in the past with other ones, but since it's harmless, it'd be interesting to see. And then you can get a banana flavored one.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I had never thought about, like the primate side
Yeah, exactly.
of things, because they are very, they're super smart creatures. They do all kinds of amazing things. I should chat with I would love to hook up with some of the folks,
Yeah, sure.
and sponsor, give them some samples and see if they get any, interaction. But I should approach the folks at St. Louis Zoo too, and
Yeah, it makes. I mean, it makes sense to me.
oh my, I never even thought of that, Mark. That's great. I'd love that. We should look at that.
Well, crazy talks to crazy, and they come up with ideas. That's what it is. So, you told me we didn't get into it. There was something that happened with the foam thing and the polar bears. What's that story?
So yeah, we've been very fortunate. St. Louis, the St. Louis Zoo and I have been doing business. Our company's been doing business with them for many years, just with bubbles and entertainment. And and they came to me again this fall, and they were looking for something to interact with the polar bears. They have some magnificent polar bears down at the St. Louis Zoo, and we brought a foam machine down there. Your typical backyard foam party machine, or the college campus foam, and we went on top of their enclosure. They have this very deep pit, and it's all bouldered, and it looks very natural. And we set this foam machine up on top, and actually blew foam down onto them, and the polar bears were fascinated by it. I mean, they went up to it, and they were pawing at it and sniffing it, and they were so engaged with it that the zoo's actually looking for. I think they've applied for some grant money to get a couple of foam machines for them.
You're kidding. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and they may move it around to the different animals. I think they tried it with the hyenas. They said the hyenas responded very nicely to it. And again, just trying to find something to, to stimulate them, to keep them interactive. And, shoot, everybody likes to have fun, man. I mean, a polar bear, you get some foam in front of them, and it's like, woohoo.
Well, absolutely. Now, I've had all kinds of ideas since we talked, and I was getting ready for this thing. One of the things I was going to ask you, and if you haven't done it, I think it'd be a great thing to do. So when a lot of the rescue places are some of the shelters in your area, when they're trying to do adoptions, I would think if the dogs and the cats really have fun with these bubbles, it may help them. The dogs, if they're all looking like they're having fun, may help them get more animals adopted.
Yes, yeah, and that is kind of the mission behind our Bubbles for Besties program. We're trying to align with, and we have a couple uh, of bigger players around the country that we're working with now in talks, where we'd love to be able to include a bottle of bubbles within their care package, or their goodie bag that they send home with the new adopted
Right.
animal. And I think that'd be a wonderful thing for us to do as a company, to give them a new and interesting play toy for them. And that's what we're kind of looking at. I mean, we're trying to get that going, and I think I don't think we'll have any problem getting it. I think we have a great product, and it should go.
I was just thinking, like, because they'll have like adopt a pet day, right? And then they have they'll have like an event where everybody comes there. But if you had the bubble thing and the pets were just having a lot of fun, one, it'd be fun anyways, it's a party atmosphere. But two is I think that they may have a better percentage of people adopting because they see a dog that maybe it's normal sitting around and it's chasing a bubble around or something. I don't know. It's just an idea.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a great idea because again, so many times when you go to like a rescue, the dogs or cats, like one of my gal that works for us, she went out and tried to get some human interest, pictures and info, and she went to a cat, to a cat rescue, and we have plenty of pictures and videos of dogs playing with our bubbles, but we don't have as many of the cats. And going into that environment, she said it was really kind of tough to get to have the cats come out of their shell because they're just kind of in this shock state. They're not sure maybe where they're going next. And I think having a more interactive or more joyful animal first for the animal, but then too for someone who's looking to adopt. It's like, wow, look, Sparky, Sparky's moving and grooving. He's a playful animal. I think we should bring him home.
Well, there's a couple big cat rescues that if it was me, that's what if I was you. There's one in California, and I can get you in touch with them. And there's one actually in Syria that's freaky. I mean, they have thousands of cats now with all the political thing changing. I don't know what it is now, but it's called Ernesto's, and it's unbelievable. It's I don't know that I'd want to go there. There's that many cats, but it'd be really cool to see something like that with the bubbles and stuff there. I think it'd be really, really interesting.
I would, I would love to maybe after the show, if you share that cat rescue in California with me, I would love to send something to them and see if we may have something that can help them.
Cool. So before we finish up, any really cool stories about the bubbles that the people listening would you could tell that was heartwarming or whatever that you can think of?
Yeah, I think owning your own business, is hard work. You're a business owner, how it is. You got to get up and and some days are really tough, but I think the thing that motivates us, and this is kind of a global thing, with our business and just what we do with bubbles in general, is I think I keep getting up and can overlook the hardships of whatever, the day may bring me, of the joy and the entertainment that we see by what we're producing here within our four walls.
Right.
And I think that goes with humans, that goes with our pets, dogs, cats, our elephants down at the St. Louis Zoo. It's that really motivates me. And I think for me, and I think anyone out there gets a great reward from seeing people smile when it has to do with what you're doing for a living or your labor. So we've just had so many great interactions. I mean, some of my best stories is like when we'll go to a new event, and I'll be blowing some of my bubbles doing like an advertising or something, and you'll see a dog that comes up and the owner will say, this dog's never seen bubbles, and this dog is jumping up and doing backflips and just can't get enough of the bubbles. And I mean, those are some of my best moments. It's like, wow, this is the first time this dog has seen bubbles, and he's going crazy. And that happens time and time again. And that just keeps me getting up in the morning, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
One of the things, that came from me as I was listening today is, I want to see what it would be like for somebody who's handicapped or ill, or like you're talking about with your besties program for the elderly to be able to participate with their animals again, just to see a smile on their face if the animals are liking it too. I think that would be just such a great deal. I mean, I'm just thinking about all the possibilities. It's just amazing what could, just to bring a little bit of happiness to somebody like that would be awesome.
Yeah, you know what? And I think, I owe it to, I've been very blessed in my life. I've been very fortunate. I've worked really hard, but I also, there comes a time for for giving back,
Right.
And I think this could be an opportunity for us to, to give something back and to put some smiles on some people's faces again, man. We need it. We need it so badly, don't we, Mark?
Oh, yeah. And I'm just thinking about therapy. And do you know that dogs actually have PTSD just the way humans do?
Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
Yeah. You need to go and look at some of the episodes I have. I did one on PTSD and dogs. If you think about it, and I'm just thinking if that it'd be therapy for the dog. But if you think about it as an example, if you get hit by a car, you see a car coming.
Yeah.
Moving forward for a while, you may, it's kind of like when you're playing baseball and a ball hits you in the eye, you flinch all the time.
Yeah.
Well, if a dog's in the car, they have the same thing. If you think about like fireworks, they get really scared. They get PTSD too, just the way humans do. They start working on it in the last 10 or 11 years on that. And I'm wondering if that would be a therapy for them as well.
I should go back and look up some of your previous podcasts on that. I think that would be super informational.
Well, I would reach out to a woman that's an expert on it. She's in like Sweden or someplace like that, and I could send her an information and say, would this really help with these dogs? So she does therapy for dogs that have PTSD.
I'm all ears, man. This has been very informational for me too. It's great when I think people get together and it's like what you do with your podcast, it's information sharing.
Sure.
People get connected, you and I probably never would have met except through the bubbles, and man, what a wonderful opportunity we've had here.
The power of the bubble. I knew to that thing. We're definitely bubbly. Okay, so let's get to my favorite time of the show, and everybody's going to start cringing, is the time when we tell our silly animal joke. And so for you guys out there, just as a deal, John's going to tell one. Actually, I've got one where you were telling you a couple of things got brought up, and I'm going to tell you a joke that's related to a couple of things you brought up. But for you guys that are out there, I would love you to call in, send me an email to my email at mkyleforrealpodcast.com. If you want your kids, your grandkids, whatever, tell a joke, much better than either John or me having to tell the joke. I would really like to do that. So please send one in. So John, you've got a joke. Let's hear what yours is.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is all right. It is what it is, Mark. Okay.
Okay.
So here it goes. Why do dogs run in circles?
Why do dogs run in circles? I don't know. Why do they run in circles?
Because it's really hard to run in squares.
That's a good one. I like that one. So here's the one I have for you.
Okay.
So you brought up hyenas and you said you had poodles and cadoodles and all that. So what do you get when you cross a hyena and a poodle?
Oh, geez. No idea.
A snickerdoodle.
Oh, dude, that's bad.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I am. Anyways, first of all, John, thanks so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And for everybody else that's listening out there, I'll have all the contact we have all the contact in the description of the thing, email and all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, keep following, spread the word. If you got a great idea for the show, I'm always welcome new ideas to have guests on. But most importantly, to everybody out there, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening. For real.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, Mark Kyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.